Investment. We live in a world where wealth is often mistaken for what we see on the surface. Expensive cars, designer clothes, and big houses have become the symbols people associate with financial success. But the truth is, real wealth often hides in plain sight. The individuals who have quietly built financial independence don't always look like what you'd expect. They might be the person standing next to you in line at the grocery store dressed modestly. Investment. Paying with a debit card and driving a 10-year-old car. Yet behind the scenes, their investments, savings, and long-term planning tell a very different story. In fact, some of the wealthiest people you'll ever meet don't show it at all. Investment. They're not trying to impress others with what they own because their confidence doesn't come from material possessions. Instead, it comes from the knowledge that they're financially secure no matter what happens. Investment. They don't need validation from anyone else, and they don't chase status. Their wealth gives them something far more valuable than status. It gives them freedom. That's why when you try to spot someone who's truly wealthy, investment. You can't just look at their clothes or their car. You have to look at their habits, their mindset, and the way they make decisions. True wealth reveals itself in subtle ways. And once you start recognizing those signs, investment, you'll notice that the people who seem the most modest are often the ones who are light years ahead financially. In this speech, I want to break down 7 signs someone is secretly wealthy. These aren't the obvious signs like wearing a luxury watch or living in a giant home. Instead, these are the quiet, almost invisible habits and choices that reveal someone has built real financial strength. You'll see that it's less about what they buy and more about how they think. By the end, you'll understand that true wealth isn't about showing off. It's about creating security, opportunity, and freedom. And more importantly, you'll see how you can start applying these same habits in your own life, even if no one else notices right away. Because at the end of the day, wealth isn't about who looks rich. It's about who actually is. When you think about the image of wealth, most people imagine something loud. It's the sports car racing down the highway, the mansion with perfectly manicured lawns, or the watch that costs more than most people's annual salary. But that's not how truly wealthy people usually operate. The ones who are genuinely secure financially rarely feel the need to showcase their money. Instead, they focus on financial security, on making sure they're safe, prepared, and in control no matter what life throws at them. This quiet approach is the foundation of their success, and it's one of the clearest signs that someone might be wealthier than they appear. The reason prioritizing security matters so much is because wealth at its core isn't about what you can buy. It's about what you can protect. Someone who's secretly wealthy doesn't chase the instant gratification showing off. They know that every dollar spent on a luxury item is a dollar that could have been invested, saved, or used to create a safety net. Rather than asking, what can I buy right now? They ask, what can I do to make sure I never worry about money later? That shift in mindset creates a ripple effect in how they spend, save, and plan. One of the most common habits of these people is building strong emergency funds. They keep cash reserves not because it's exciting, but because it keeps them safe. It allows them to handle unexpected expenses like medical bills, home repairs, or job loss without panicking. To an outsider, you wouldn't notice this at all. There's no trophy or shiny object to prove it, but that cushion is a quiet sign of their financial discipline. It's invisible security, and that's where their confidence comes from. Another way secretly wealthy people prioritize security is through diversification. They spread their money across different investments, stocks, real estate, index funds, maybe even small businesses. Instead of betting everything on one risky opportunity, they minimize risk by creating multiple income streams. This way, if one investment underperforms, it doesn't destroy their entire financial picture. To the average person, they might just look like someone with a steady job and a normal lifestyle, but underneath the surface, their portfolio is quietly working for them. Living this way also changes how they handle debt. Secretly wealthy people don't look at debt as free money. They see it as a risk that can compromise their security. So they either avoid it altogether or use it strategically in ways that create more value than they cost. They might use leverage to buy real estate that generates cash flow, but they won't use debt to buy a car just to impress neighbors. Every decision is calculated, rooted in the idea of protection, not exposure. This mindset even shapes how they spend their free time. Instead of obsessing over brands or social media appearances, they spend time learning more about finance markets and new opportunities. They understand that knowledge is a form of security too, because the more they know, the better equipped they're to protect and grow what they already have. What makes this behavior stand out is that it goes against the grain of society. We live in a culture that encourages people to broadcast their wealth. Social media is full of people flaunting luxury lifestyles, even if those lifestyles are funded by credit card debt. The secretly wealthy don't play that game. investment. Their security comes from knowing they'll be fine tomorrow, next year, and decades from now. They're not driven by the need to be seen. They're driven by the need to be secure. The irony is because they focus so much on security, their wealth grows even faster. By avoiding the traps of overspending and constantly upgrading their lifestyle, they're able to reinvest more money into assets. That reinvestment compounds over time, giving them even greater security and freedom. So, while others may be chasing appearances, the secretly wealthy are building real wealth in silence. When you meet someone who doesn't flaunt what they have but always seems calm about money, that's a strong sign you might be dealing with someone who's quietly wealthy. Their priority isn't to look rich today, it's to be untouchable tomorrow. And that focus on financial security above all else is what truly separates them from the rest. Living below your means is one of the most powerful and consistent signs that someone is secretly wealthy. At first glance, it may sound simple, even obvious, but when you look closely at how most people handle money, you realize just how rare it actually is. The majority of people increase their spending the moment they start earning more. Meant they get a raise and immediately upgrade to a bigger house, a newer car, or more expensive clothes. The assumption is that higher income should equal a higher lifestyle. But those who are quietly wealthy see things differently. They don't spend every dollar they make. Instead, they create a gap between what they earn and what they spend, and that gap becomes the engine that drives their long-term financial success. Investment. This principle is not about living cheaply or depriving yourself. It's about discipline and priorities. A secretly wealthy person may have the ability to afford luxuries, but they choose not to make those luxuries the default. For them, comfort and security matter more than status. They might live in a modest neighborhood even though they could qualify for a larger mortgage. They might drive a reliable car that's already paid off rather than financing the latest model. To an outsider, their lifestyle may look ordinary, even unimpressive, but behind the scenes, they're stacking cash, reinvesting dividends, and quietly building wealth that others can't see. What makes living below your means so effective is the way it compounds over time. Imagine two people who both earn the same income. One spends nearly everything they make, upgrading their lifestyle with every pay raise. The other keeps expenses steady, investing the difference. 10 years later, the spender is still reliant on their paycheck, while the disciplined saver has built a portfolio that produces income on its own. It's not about who looks successful in the moment. It's about who has the freedom to stop working if they want to. And more often than not, it's the one who lived modestly. This mindset also changes the way secretly wealthy people view material possessions. Instead of buying things for the sake of appearances, they make purchases that truly add value to their life. A watch isn't a status symbol. It's something to tell time. A house isn't a way to show off success. It's a place to live comfortably and securely. They focus on functionality and long-term utility instead of prestige. And because they don't spend impulsively, they have the patience to save for quality items when they really need them, rather than buying cheap replacements over and over again. As another important aspect of living below your means is avoiding lifestyle inflation. For most people, once they start earning more, they feel like they deserve to spend more. The secretly wealthy resist that temptation. If their income doubles, their expenses don't. They keep their lifestyle stable while their savings rate skyrockets. That difference between income and expenses is what allows them to invest more aggressively, build stronger safety nets, investment, and create a path toward financial independence much faster than the average person. This approach also gives them freedom. By not tying themselves to high monthly expenses, they aren't trapped in jobs they hate or reliant on constant pay raises. Investment, everything have the flexibility to walk away from opportunities that don't serve them because their lifestyle doesn't demand every dollar they earn. That sense of freedom is a form of wealth that's far more valuable than any luxury item. Even socially, secretly wealthy people often stand out because of how unassuming they are. While others chase recognition through what they wear, drive, or post online, these individuals quietly go about their lives. They don't need external validation because they know their financial position speaks for itself, even if no one else can see it. In fact, their modest lifestyle often keeps them under the radar, which is exactly how they like it. Being unnoticed allows them to avoid unnecessary attention and live life on their terms without pressure to maintain appearances. The irony is that those who live below their means are often in the best position to enjoy luxuries if they choose to. Investment, because they've built such a strong foundation, they can buy the vacation, the car, or the home without stress, knowing it won't compromise their financial security. The difference is that they choose to enjoy these things sparingly. Investment deliberately and in ways that enhance their life rather than define it. When you see someone who earns well but doesn't flaunt it, who could upgrade their lifestyle but chooses stability instead, That's often a sign you're looking at someone who's quietly wealthy. Their wealth isn't written on their clothes, their car, or their Instagram feed. It's hidden in their bank accounts, investments, and the freedom they've built. Investment. They understand that real wealth is not about spending everything you have. It's about having the discipline to spend less than you could and letting the difference work for you over time. In the end, investment, living below your means isn't just a financial strategy. It's a mindset. It's the decision to prioritize freedom over appearance, stability over status, and long-term security over short-term gratification. And it's one of the clearest signs that someone isn't just surviving financially. They're thriving in silence. One of the clearest distinctions between people who only look wealthy and those who are truly wealthy lies in how they view assets and liabilities. For most, money is simply a tool for consumption. When they receive a paycheck, their first thought is how to spend it on cars, clothes, gadgets, or vacations. While these things might bring temporary joy, they don't build long-term stability. Secretly wealthy people, however, think differently. They see money as a tool for ownership, growth, and leverage. They don't focus on what drains their pockets. They focus on what fills them. That's why they quietly build a portfolio of assets rather than liabilities. The key difference is understanding that assets put money into your pocket while liabilities take money out. It may sound basic, but living by this principle creates an entirely different financial trajectory. For example, owning a rental property that generates steady income is an asset. It pays you every month, even when you're not actively working. A flashy car, on the other hand, is a liability. Not only does it cost money to buy, but it also requires insurance, maintenance, and loses value every year. The secretly wealthy understand this distinction better than anyone, and they make choices accordingly. Instead of chasing liabilities for the sake of appearances, they focus on acquiring assets that compound over time. Stocks, index funds, dividend-paying investments, real estate, and even businesses are their priorities. They put their money into vehicles that can grow without their constant effort. To the outside world, this doesn't look impressive. There's no excitement in telling people you own shares of an index fund or that you reinvest dividends year after year. But that's exactly how wealth is built quietly in the background. This focus on assets also reflects a deeper level of patience. Liabilities offer instant gratification. You buy the car and you immediately feel the thrill of owning it. Assets, however, require delayed gratification. You don't see the full benefit of buying shares in a company until years later when those shares appreciate or when dividends compound. Secretly wealthy people have mastered the art of waiting. Investment. They understand that every dollar invested today can multiply in the future, so they resist the urge to waste it on things that don't grow. What's fascinating is that this mindset shapes not just how they spend, but also how they evaluate opportunities. When faced with a decision, they ask, will this create long-term value? If the answer is yes, they move forward. If it's just another liability disguised as luxury, they pass without hesitation. And this is why they might avoid financing a brand new car, but will gladly take out a loan to purchase an investment property. To most people, both look like debt, but to the secretly wealthy, investment, one is a liability while the other is a leveraged asset. That difference is subtle, but it makes all the difference over time. Even small choices reflect this principle. They might put extra money into retirement accounts instead of designer clothes. They might buy durable items that last rather than trendy ones that quickly lose appeal. They're not cheap, they're intentional. Every purchase is measured by whether it adds long-term value or short-term gratification. And the result is a lifestyle that looks modest but is supported by a foundation of growing wealth. This discipline often goes unnoticed because assets are invisible. You can't see someone's stock portfolio or their cash flow from a rental property when you pass them on the street. All you see is their modest car, their average-looking home, or their simple clothing. Meanwhile, the liabilities people flaunt are on full display. That's why appearances can be deceiving. The person who looks like they have it all may actually be weighed down by debt, while the person who looks ordinary may quietly own multiple streams of income. What makes this approach even more powerful is the way assets create freedom. Liabilities lock you into a cycle of working just to pay for the things you own. Assets do the opposite. They free you by generating income without demanding your time. A secretly wealthy person might not need to work a traditional job because their investments cover their living expenses. That freedom is the truest form of wealth, and it comes from prioritizing assets over liabilities again and again. Over time, the gap between those who accumulate assets and those who accumulate liabilities becomes enormous. The spender may appear wealthier in the short term, but eventually the debt catches up and the lifestyle becomes unsustainable. The secretly wealthy, on the other hand, continue to expand their net worth year after year without needing to show it off. And when they finally decide to enjoy luxuries, they can do so without guilt or stress because their assets pay for them, not their paycheck. Investment. So when you meet someone who doesn't flaunt luxury items but seems comfortable, relaxed, and financially confident, it's often because they've built a life centered around assets, not liabilities. Investment. They don't measure success by what they can buy today. They measure it by what will continue to pay them tomorrow. That subtle shift in perspective is one of the strongest signs of someone who is secretly wealthy. For many people, success is measured by the things they can show off the size of their house, the brand of their car, or the labels on their clothes. These symbols become a way of signaling achievement to the world, almost like trophies. But when you look at people who are quietly, truly wealthy, you'll notice that they play by an entirely different set of rules. Their version of success isn't about possessions, it's about freedom. Freedom becomes the ultimate measure of wealth, and it's the clearest sign that someone has built financial independence without feeling the need to advertise it. The reason freedom matters so much is that it changes the entire relationship with money. For most, money is tied to stress. They need to work to cover bills, keep up with expenses, and maintain a lifestyle that often exceeds their income. Their possessions may look impressive, but behind the scenes, they're tied down by debt and obligations. The secretly wealthy don't live this way. They've structured their finances so that money works for them instead of the other way around. As a result, they get to choose how they spend their time, who they spend it with, and what kind of life they live. That's a level of wealth no luxury car can match. When someone measures success by freedom, you see it in the way they make choices. They aren't chasing promotions just for a higher salary if it costs them their health or family time. They don't feel pressured to live in the right neighborhood or join the right clubs to fit in. Instead, they prioritize flexibility, being able to take a vacation when they want, work on projects they enjoy, or walk away from opportunities that don't align with their values. Their lifestyle is built on independence, not dependence. This shift in values also explains why secretly wealthy people often seem so calm and grounded. They're not worried about investment, worried about impressing others because they don't define themselves by comparison. They know their wealth isn't something that needs external validation. The freedom to live life on their terms is enough. This is why you might meet someone who dresses simply, drives a modest car, and avoids the spotlight, yet radiates confidence. They don't need to prove anything because their financial independence gives them peace of mind that no material object could provide. The irony is that prioritizing freedom often leads to a far richer life, both financially and emotionally. By not tying themselves to expensive possessions, secretly wealthy people free up more resources to invest. Those investments then generate income, which creates even more freedom. It's a positive cycle that continues to compound. Meanwhile, those chasing possessions often find themselves stuck in a cycle of working more to spend more, never quite breaking free. What looks like wealth on the surface is actually a cage, while true wealth, though invisible, unlocks the door to independence. Another sign that someone measures wealth by freedom is how they view time. For the secretly wealthy, time is the most valuable asset of all. They know that money can always be earned back, but time cannot. This is why they structure their lives in ways that give them control over their schedule. They may work fewer hours, delegate tasks, or focus only on projects that excite them. Their investments, passive income, or businesses create the financial cushion that allows them to prioritize time over money. And when you see someone who consistently values experiences and relationships over material goods, it's often because they've already built that financial safety net. Freedom also shows up in their mindset about retirement. For many, retirement feels like a distant finish line, something you endure decades of work to finally reach. But secretly wealthy people don't wait for retirement to enjoy life. They design their lifestyle so that financial independence comes much earlier. They don't need to stop working, but they work by choice, not by necessity. That's why you'll often find them pursuing passion projects, hobbies, or philanthropy. Their wealth gives them options, and options are the purest form of freedom. This value system also protects them from the constant pressure of comparison. While others may be competing with neighbors or colleagues to prove who has the nicer car or bigger house, the quietly wealthy have opted out of that race entirely. They don't measure themselves against others. They measure their success by their ability to live authentically. That freedom from comparison is liberating, and it explains why they rarely crave recognition. To them, recognition is irrelevant if it comes at the cost of freedom. Ultimately, when you look at someone who seems to live life on their own terms, without chasing trends, without showing off, without being tied to a paycheck, you're probably looking at someone who is secretly wealthy. Investment, they've shifted the definition of wealth away from possessions and toward independence. Their version of success isn't loud or flashy, but it's far more valuable. It's the freedom to wake up without financial anxiety, the freedom to pursue passions, the freedom to spend time with loved ones, and the freedom to choose a life that aligns with their values. True wealth isn't about having the most, it's about needing the least. And when someone builds their life around freedom rather than possessions, it's a clear sign they've achieved a level of wealth that most people only dream of.